Thank you everybody for joining. Once again, apologies for the mix-up with the link and the organizational scheduling. But it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's briefing. It's proudly brought to you as a partnership of Deutsche Telekom Security, Hitachi Energy, and Securitas. We are launching the Industrial Security Center, which, as you know, is a world first for a fully integrated security service, specifically for the energy sector. My name is Jackie Luate, and I'm going to be your moderator this afternoon. Alex, if we could please jump over to the agenda. So for our agenda, we will introduce the Industrial Security Center. This will take about 45 minutes. We'll take you through the solution and technology, and along the way, we will pause for some questions and answers. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce to you the partnership's leadership, Mr. Pierre Landgraf, the SVP for Global Security, for Hitachi Energy, Mr. Thomas Chazish. Amongst his many roles, he's also the CSO of Deutsche Telekom AG. And Mr. Anders Gustafsson, he's the head of Global Connection Solution for Securitas. As I said, over the next 45 minutes, they're going to take us through what has necessitated this advancement and what is the value proposition to our customers through the partnership. Thereafter, our practice lead, Mr. Ban Diego, who is the practice lead for IoT security, is going to take us through the technology and solution of it all. We're going to pause along the way for some question and answers, so please feel free to use the chat function to raise your questions. Feel free to raise your hands and we can field your questions. But in the interest of time and without further ado, Anders, I'm going to hand over to you.
Good. And now I can't probably see myself, some technical problems. Maybe you can see me, but I hope you can hear me. My name is Anders Gustafsson from Securitas, as introduced. Giving you a little bit background on this effort, what we have done in the Industrial Security Center and the collaboration we have between the three partners. And as you probably most of you know, the risks have actually taken off for this type of equipment and sites. For me, from being from the physical security part, this has been very often an unprotected type of sites, type of information. And we know all that mainly we have protected these type of sites where we have high voltage and other type of things from trespassing. Trespassing, avoiding people getting into the site and getting hurt and those. So it's more from a safety and health perspective that we have been looking into this. Of course, there has been an element of sabotage and terrorism, including in this, theft, availability of metals that could be stolen, and also one of the issues we have with these type of sites is that they're normally remote and not often inside the cities, far away, and we need to do different type of security measures to do the interventions, to do the patrolling, etc. time and response times if we have an event of that type. So Securitas is bringing in this type of, as you say, traditional competence in physical security, how to protect these sites. And what are actually then the physical or the risk if we look from a business perspective, and we look into the energy OT operations. And one of the things we talk about a lot with our customers also outside this type of sites is actually the business impact of looking into that. I mean, it's not maybe so much loss prevention, it's not so much theft, still, of course, health and safety are important, but we also see the reputation damage. The cost of actually having a power outlet if there is a break-in and the effect on the whole society. We get much more type of information, spread bad public publicity on this type of information. And we see that the operations, I mean, the cascading effects to other sectors, the permanent damages, which actually then cause a lot of costs, not only for the damage itself, but also that we are actually without energy or those type of things. Other things that we talked quite a lot about also in this specific vertical is, of course, the industrial intelligence espionage. I mean, what can be used and how can that information actually be used of competitors? And then to take maybe the issue we have today is the cybersecurity. Cybersecurity today is actually not so easy. In the past, physical security was quite easy. We see from the physical security point of view also risk of cybersecurity, because we have known and we know that the criminals of today actually don't want to rob a high luxury watch boutique. They can actually hack the cameras, go into the cameras, and to identify where the people actually live, and actually do the burglary or the theft in another place in a very highly secure environment. So the cybersecurity then, I mean, combines all the things that we have seen from IT as well. Traditional keeping track of firmware updates, the DDoS attacks that we see more and more, and whereas unfortunately some of the things on the physical security has been causing that they have hacked the cameras, they're using the computing capacity of the camera to actually do those attacks. So things fit together. And the supply chain, as we talked about in the auto operation, is extremely then vulnerable for these type of attacks as well. And we have seen a lot of examples of ransomware and other type of things. So what we really need to do to protect and mitigate risks at this type of industrial site is to have all these three things in mind. We need to understand the business of the site, much more looking into a separate site or separate type of entity that we're protecting. We need to understand that what we are protecting today is actually, I call it Internet of Things, or an ecosystem of different things that are correlated. And we need to protect it from a physical security point of view. And that by combining these three deep expertise in OT, cyber and physical security, I think we have seen that we together actually can mitigate those risks and minimize the threats for the suppliers, but also for the end customers. And I think that's what we'll walk through in this presentation, how to handle this. So please over to, I think you, the next speaker here.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Anders. Once again, apologize for the trouble at the dial-in. We originally intended to have this as a physical and not a virtual meeting, but pandemia is also causing us here and avoiding the physical presence. Nevertheless, talking about security incidents, and you see here only three examples out of the recent days. And we could have added here hundreds of more examples, but they're clearly showing that it's not only about the technology, it's not only about the cyber, it's not only about the physical world, it's all coming together. And if you take the one in the middle here, there was a balloon flying into a power station and caused an outage. And the teams here of the operator were searching for the root cause a long time, and now you can argue, what has this to do with cyber and what has this to do with physical security? It's the classical word, yeah, that's for sure, that's right. But with the combined approaches, having the physical security inspection, for instance, and the video surveillance in an operation center available as well, like the operational technology, which shows you the actual status of the systems, together with the cyber defense showing you the latest attack vectors and the status of the cyber defense systems, there would have been much faster in solving that issue. Same you saw here with Colonel Pipeline, also there, a lot of things coming together, and the world is becoming here with all these examples increasingly complex. And that was exactly the point, and Anders mentioned that earlier as well, where we stick together and said, hey, how can we make life for our clients easier in bringing these capabilities more closer together, because the attacker is not really caring about on which vector he's successful, yeah, but the outage and the result for one operating an infrastructure is the same. And think about a data center. You can attack a data center by switching the power off. You can attack a data center by attacking it virtually via the internet lines. But you can also attack the data center by dropping powder in the climate system and the cooling system and taking that out of operation. So there are a lot of different attack vectors, but all of them resulting in the same, an outage of the infrastructure. And that's the reason why we three here decided to go together and to create that common offering. With that, over to Pierre now. Pierre is muted.
I have unmuted him.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
So, let me try again. So indeed, I think this is really one of the biggest challenges which we have right now, right? And what we haven't spoken about yet is the sector challenge. So there is a electricity power sector inherent challenge, which is actually true also for rail, for water, for any manufacturing type. But we've been focusing here on the electricity. So let me quickly, as a former CEO of Swissgrid, let me quickly try to guide you through these challenges. So one, infrastructure in the electricity sector are built for generations. Why is that? It's simply, it's more costly, it's more efficient, and that's why you've built infrastructure that lasts for 30, 40 years. It's very expensive. This means, however, that it comes with a massive legacy, which does not follow at the same pace as a threat outside follows. The second part is networks are interconnected. I mean, if you look at the European network, you have a synchronous area. So every outage in one network is potentially creating an outage in another network, if not contained just in time. And just so you understand, normally for stability reasons, you have about 20 minutes time to take the right measures, specifically in transmission of some transmission, but it's not a lot of time you have left to react if something goes wrong on the power side. Then there are the renewables, which you see on that picture, which is fantastic, right? We need to CO2 zero, but that means we completely invert the power flows, which means the operators have to have a lot of focus on stability on their operations. Plus, there come a few other challenges like aging of the workforce. There are about 15,000 power engineers missing at the moment. There are other challenges such as the digitization, which creates also some new entry door. And all of that means the power operator needs to focus already quite a bit on their stuff. And that's the key question, which was a departure of this venture. I said, okay, how can we focus on helping the industry, the electricity industry, to really maintain the focus on their part and provide an integrated support on security? Maybe with that, we can come to the next slide, please. So that's where we started on our journey. The idea, we started together, our three partners, in 2019. And I would like at this stage to thank T-Security and Securitas for both their positive attitude, their endurance on really getting this test carried out. And I think we've come a long way to bring the teams together, not just from a sales perspective, but from an operations perspective. The key departing point we had is, what is our best position to deliver an integrated security feed rapidly with the very deep level of expertise to our customers and support them on security, not taking away, just support them. And maybe we can then demonstrate what we came up with on to the next slide. So our answer is one security feed on 3 security domains. So let me briefly talk against, quote unquote, my domain or our domain as Hitachi Energy. We have thousands of specialists in operation technology. Actually, we develop operation technology. We understand the behavior of power networks. And as Thomas lined out earlier, it's very important to understand the operational context in which you have a cyber attack. And with our expertise and our collaboration center and security centers, we can provide us into the partnership. But that's not the only thing which is needed. And maybe, Thomas, I'm sure you have a lot to say about the cybersecurity piece.
Yeah, absolutely, Pierre. So as we have a strong expertise in protecting IT networks and IT infrastructures, we started a while ago, and maybe Bernd will tell a little later on that as well, to think what does that mean for operational technology. And as you all know, operational technology these days are connected via IP protocol as well. So they're all talking IP. For sure, they have some specific protocols, but nevertheless, they have all the same root. And this makes it attractive for attackers. So what they learned in the IT space is suddenly also possible in the OT environment. And so therefore, we can easily shift what we've learned out of the cyber defense space with different kind of sensors, with different kind of alarmings, and for sure with different kind of reactions. And we come to that in a couple of minutes, into that space as well. So taking the learning out of the 24/7 operations in protecting IT networks is easily shiftable into the OT networks, and that's exactly what we did here together with Hitachi and together with Securitas. And as I mentioned on the slides before, Securitas is also playing a big role here in getting the 360-degree picture. So Anders, would you add to that?
Yes, thanks, Thomas. And again, sorry if I'm not this. I guess you don't see me on the screen, but yes, and my responsibility areas is actually to drive this change and transformation inside Securitas on a global scale, to actually find standardized solutions where we combine traditional guarding services with technology. And just to make a little bit sidestep, maybe some of you have seen that we did a big acquisition announcement this morning, actually to strengthen that as well. We will acquire the whole of Stanley, a global technology company. But the most important for us is that we will combine this in a way that we can use sensors sometimes. And as you can see on the right-hand part of this slide, you can actually see how we are protecting an area. We call it area protection, which means that we don't have any guards, but we actually virtually secure the area, in the sense that we can do an early detection. And also, if we have the data together with our partners, we can maybe do early detection and be more proactive. But saying here is real-time detection, capitalized by the sensors in terms of cameras with artificial intelligence on, fire and safety sensors, etc., which we combine with our partners then on the cybersecurity area, and can actually draw a conclusion out of that, and then actually do an intervention if we need to check manually what is happening. So there we can actually first verify, I should say, with the camera, the sensors we have. We can actually now, as you see, there's a drone as well, using different type of technologies. I call actually it's the same as fixed mounted sensors, but we then have sensors that is on the move, either on our guards or drones or robots or whatever we would like to use it. But also combining this with the sensors that we have inside the building. And doing the physical security is really important, and from different perspectives, not to get in to do the sabotage, but not even to get into the building, where you maybe can address the servers or the computers on that matters. And I always compare this with the security that we have, for instance, at the data centers, that we really need to ensure that you don't bring in anything that can harm the setups, or even take out something that is actually containing data, which is a challenge of its own. So we are capitalizing on that knowledge as well. But here it's the physical security, where we use a different type of sensors to automate with or without artificial intelligence in different levels, to identify threats and trespassing on an early stage. So, but that said, I think, Pierre-Alain, maybe you will take the next slide and continue.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Anders. And I think the question is really, so what is it actually we're offering, right? So it's, as I mentioned earlier, it's not just a common sales or market approach. It's actually a common operational approach where we integrate processes, and I come to that later. We really worked hard to make sure we have efficient processes between our companies. The main topic, or the main service we offer today is the incident detection and response, which is anomaly on operation technology and cyber is anomaly detection. So anything which is abnormal will be detected. And very interesting also for power operator, this is not just security. It will tell you everything about misconfigurations. So one of the things we found about the pilot I'm going to speak in a moment is that it really creates quite a help of understanding whether there's a misconfiguration on my piece of equipment on site, on my substations or my control center. And then as outlined by Anders, I think we have the intrusion detection service, which helps to give an early warning. Many of the famous cyber attacks started with a physical interaction. And if you want to be in time to resolution, you need to find the intrusion point, and that's why we think physical security is an important piece of it. Then the second block of what we offer is vulnerability management. Now, I'm pretty sure you understand that vulnerability and patching vulnerabilities on operational technology is a different type of technology than we would do on normal computers. It's actually one of the sour spots of the industry. It's very cumbersome. It takes a lot of time. And we found ways now to really combine the customer problems for different vendors into one solution and really very quickly create visibility about the necessary activities on patching for vulnerabilities. Also, the advantage of combining powerful possibilities within the three companies is a threat analysis service, which Deutsche Telekom or Securitas is providing, with a very, as a tier one telecom operator, a very deep insight in what's happening in the internet, and acting as a radar for our customers to really ensure that everything is covered, such as fraudulent domains, rogue sites, and any other type of activities. And the last piece, which is asset register service, sounds very simple, but it's not. It's actually keeping and maintaining a real-time asset registry, which is also in industry quite a challenge for operators. And by implementing the security piece, the advantage is you get an up-to-date asset registry for all other processes, such as workforce management, maintenance, and all other activities in a physical instance. And what we've learned also is that not all customers are the same. That's why we've created 3 different types of service. So the customers can choose whether they have an entry level or an advanced level, depending on where they are themselves. So that leads to the second point, the next point, the slide about the compliance. And Thomas, I'm pretty sure you as a CISO know a lot about compliance.
Yeah, I have to deal in my daily business as well with that, and have this both perspective, one as the supplier, but also as the consumer of those technologies. Actually, this is more or less nothing else than just a different view on the picture Pierre-Alain just showed us, but in different categories you need to think on if you're a responsible person. So first of all, you need to identify the threats, and Pierre-Alain just talked about the portfolio we do have here. It's including the physical world, but it's also including the virtual world. And as I've mentioned, the attacker simply doesn't care on the way as long he's successful in attacking you. And therefore you need to have these 360 degree picture. After you identified the threats, it's about protecting, and protecting here in that sense is not only, again, about the physical stuff, it's not only about the virtual, it's the combination out of everything. Once you have that protection in place, it's good to have a fence around your infrastructure, but nevertheless, it's also good to know who is jumping above the fence. And therefore, you need to have the detection. So we bring in here anomaly detection on the system level, but also the energy system itself, without talking about cyber, has potentially anomalies and alarming on anomalies, which is giving an operator a hint that there's maybe something suspicious going on. Combining that with anomalies where you can find suspicious in the cyber world, or even you see that one is jumping over the fence into a power station, gives you a better view on the whole threat landscape around you. Yeah, nevertheless, if you have that information, you need to respond on that, and you can imagine Securitas won't be able to respond on an outage of a power switch. We as Deutsche Telekom won't be able to respond on technical details of a power switch, and the other way around with Hitachi ABB. And bringing these capabilities now together, we are together able really to respond on all of these vectors in a time manner way. So customer don't have to care about the problem and to whom to talk to, as he's using a common offering here in future to have a common response, which is much time closer to the incident as it would be if you first have to find out who's responsible to respond, what response needs to be taken, how to coordinate that. And yeah, this is one of the major advantages here, also when I take my hat as a security responsible on. And what's on the roadmap here is also, and this is not part of the offering yet, it's discussing with our clients what we can offer them to help them recover in case they have an incident. So we did some pilots on that, and the results on that pilots, Pierre, I guess you are the one presenting it.
Yeah, thank you very much. And looking at the time, I will not spend too much time. Maybe we can have question and answers on that. It's just to show we didn't want to go out in the market with an idea. We wanted to go out in the market with something which we've proven, we have a track record, we understand how it works. And we spent actually 12 months working with two key customers of Hitachi Energy, together with Deutsche Telekom and Securitas, to really develop the concept, refine it. We've gained quite a lot of insights on that. We've gained, first of all, an operational procedures insight and optimized that. We also understood much better what the operational needs from the customers are. Despite of my background, I always didn't know everything. So I think we really have learned a lot on there. We also got a lot of feedback in terms of what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. For instance, we had a drone detection in there. We found out there are so many drones at times, it's too noisy at the moment. So we pulled that out for the moment, and we'll come back at a later stage. So the view, a lot of serious findings we put in there, and that helps also to be confident about the service we start to offer to our customers today. Without further ado, maybe we just briefly summarize, and I suggest we, on the next slide, and we go into the technical details, because I'm pretty sure you're anxious to understand actually what is it we're doing. So maybe Anders, do you want to make a comment on the summary?
No, I think maybe a comment on your slide as well, Thomas. I really like the way that we identify, protect, detect, and respond. And I would just like to add that delay is, of course, also a very important part. If we can delay the intruders from getting into the heart of the station, we have won a lot. So that's something we talk about a lot about in physical security as a matter, because that will allow us to reduce the risks and to take appropriate response. But otherwise, from a summary point of view, I think it's very much we see generally in the industry today that these topics has been handled by the end customers themselves, not only in this vertical, but also in others. And they want what we call sometimes peace of mind. Please help me. I will focus on my business for providing a quality type. And that we said in this slide as well, we can focus on core business activities and we take care of the security, which actually fulfills the need of peace of mind and call it outsourcing. But I think the first bullet as well is extremely important for us in this collaboration, because we have the subject matter expertise. We know what we are doing, and we are specialists on what we are doing. I can talk a lot about, we were discussing drones and other things, but both as a mean of protecting a site, but also detecting drones, which becomes even more issue. We have all that knowledge, we have the technology at hand, and our colleagues then have in their respective areas. So I think this is one of the really, really beneficial things, and that we can make it operational from that point of view. So I don't know whether you, Thomas, or you, Pierre-Alain, would like to add to that, but that's, for me, we have the joint competence in this area to be able to actually do something that creates value for our customers.
Just to highlight one additional aspect here, the world is becoming increasingly complex. The regulation out there, and we didn't talk so much about that, is also becoming increasingly complex. Yeah, we have new IT security laws all around the world. The European Commission is currently working on a critical infrastructure protection law, which is covering more the physical world, and all of these is additional complexity here. And if you have a hat on as a security responsible in a company, it's rather impossible to deal with all these things at the same time. Yeah, so therefore you need to bring together certain professions here. You need to reduce the amount of coordination, otherwise you're lost in really complexity. And this is where we really think we can make a difference here and we can help our clients.
And I don't want to overstretch, but the compliance is very important. We've made some measurements, and I just saw a question about 62443. We did it NIST and NERC-CIP. I think on NIST NERC-CIP, the customers get way over 50% compliance by simply adapting our services. I think it's really way over, which helps already to get focused. There are things for the customers to do themselves, but we get in there. And I think that will also help to really focus on the core business. Now, why don't we just go over and hand over to Bernd and say, what is it, Bernd, we actually are doing? Well, I'm pretty sure you have a pretty good insight into that.
Thanks, Pierre. Okay, so first off, I'll switch the presentation to my desk because I will probably need a pen and explain some more complex stuff. So if that's okay, and I hope you can see the screen.
Yep.
Yes. Okay, thanks a lot. Yeah?
Go ahead, Ben.
Everything's fine?
Yes.
Okay, so and welcome. If you see my background picture, I would love to welcome you to our Cyber Defense Center in Bonn. That picture is taken during a demo. Of course, in normal operations, you're not allowed to take photos. It's just a background picture due to the fact that we have some limitations to Corona and the stuff. So before I jump into the nitty-gritty stuff of the technical stuff, and I wanted to re-emphasize a core principle. Yeah. So when we talk about this service, it's not just to get a nice package of 3 companies doing their stuff. Yeah. So in the typical, the old approach was you maybe have contracted a company doing physical security, yeah, and they have some cameras, and the camera is feeding information in some systems, and there's a process on that, and this is a silo, right? And then you have the OT operations guys having their sensors, having analytic systems for their information, and if you're lucky or an early adopter, you maybe already have some cybersecurity operations in your OT, and then again you have an intrusion detection system. But the camera over here would not talk to the intrusion detection system on the cyber side, nor would this IDS system on the cyber side know about the status of some critical operation parameters on the OT side of things. Yeah, so this is something they simply do not talk to each other, and they are isolated. And this is exactly the silos we try to break with our approach on the right-hand side. So already on the technology raw data layer, we have connected via some systems. I will talk about the SOA system. SOA stands for Security Orchestration, Automation, and Response. We have correlated the information on these 3 layers, and they feed and will trigger joint processes. Yeah, so we have playbooks that really take into regards the information from these 3 domains. Yeah, from the physical, OT, and cyber. And there's a team on top of this that has now the joint skills and also the people who work together on these incidents. Yeah, so this is the core principle behind that. Yeah, and that's super abstract. Yeah, so let me try to visualize a bit how this looks in reality. Yeah, so you might have an alert coming up from, let's say, a power generation plant. Yeah, so it doesn't matter. And then you have also the camera detecting a guy on site, and this is where this automation system would kick in for the first time, then the SOA system would say, look, there is a guy on site. Let's check if there is a maintenance ticket, or in a workforce management system, there's an entry for today. Yeah? And let's assume for a second there would be an announced maintenance, so that a guy is on site. That is probably okay. However, at the same time, the cyber security system would fire up and say, look, I see some very strange activities on the network. Yeah. And however, the probably most critical monitoring system, it's just an example, right? For the OT process on site, it says, well, actually, I'm doing fine. So the critical protection switch on my side, I'm doing okay. And if you just would have one screen and one information source, you'd probably wonder, well, what's going on there? Now, having all this information, you probably can quickly determine, okay, there's a plant maintenance. The guy came in probably with an infected notebook or USB stick. Fortunately, this malware on this USB stick was too modern, yeah, and the outdated Windows XP or 7 systems in this substation are not affected. And we do not have to reroute the power grid, because it's a very tough decision you have to make, right? Because you have to buy power on the market in case the switching does not work as expected. And that's how you can easily determine what's going on if we have this broad context of information, right? Yeah, that looks very simple on a slide. You probably believe me if I say implementing it on a technical level is far from being very simple. And the two challenges I wanted to highlight, the first is if you have now this broad view and a lot of sensors and a lot of data points, yeah, let's assume we just pick a few data points from the physical domain. You have a camera at the gate, in the server room, the building, we skip the drone stuff, and you probably have a camera detecting strange cars parking nearby, the loitering stuff, 4 data points, 5 data points. And from the cyber physical sensor, you just this guy can produce about 400 different alerts. Yeah, but if you just pick, let's say, well, these 6 are the most critical one, let's stay with this, or network scanning, unauthorized software on a SCADA PC, things like that. Yeah, and then a few data points from the OT side of things, device health, project file changed, illegal function code. These are typical elements you might see, and they have relevance. But still, if you have identified the data points which are of relevance, you don't can enumerate, have a full mapping of each event. Yeah. So what you have to identify is causal chains saying, look, there's probably car parking outside, strange thing, somebody's holding in a 10 out of the window, something like that. There's all of a sudden a new device showing up in the network. We see some network scanning because there's somebody trying to access the access point within the substation. And then you see probably all of a sudden project file change, and then that caused an illegible function code. So all the possibilities where these individual data points could map, yeah, you have to identify this change that makes sense. And this was really where this 12 months, where reality also helped us learning what are the real changes we have to look for, right? And the other challenge is complexity. Yeah. So what you see here, and you don't have to read all this tiny little text. It's just about the number of boxes you see. Yeah. So this is an example of, if you just have one domain, and if I've picked a cybersecurity domain, this is a typical title of a runbook, of a playbook. Yeah. So if you have this excessive usage of login attempts via a certain protocol, this is typical indication that some malware is trying to do something. Yeah. And in regards what your analysts are probably doing, the runbook they are following, you have this type of graph. Yeah. Now, if you think about the event I've mentioned before, there's a new device showing up, and now you have the sensors and data points from these 3 domains. You end up in a bit more complex workflow. Yeah. So the blue one on the bottom is the OT workflow, the green one is the cyber, and the yellow one is OT, and this orange is interaction with the customer, right? So it gets quite complex all of a sudden. The good news is, and this is where the power and the beauty of a SOA system kicks in. Just again, let me rephrase for people not so familiar with these technologies: security, orchestration, automation, and response. It's actually a software that can, it's something like a virtual level 1 analyst. Yeah. So a guy that pulls initial information. Is this a critical asset? I contact the asset database. Is there a known vulnerability? What is the topology of the network? And so on. So the groundwork that typically a human being would do, and a human being may use 50 minutes to have this all sorted. This SOA system actually could cover the first boxes here automatically within seconds. Yes, this is the beauty. And when the human analyst then kicks in, he presented high quality information where he can do a well-informed decision. And as I said, to speeding up such complex processes, such a SOA system is really key. Yeah, and then you are back actually if you use these technologies to very simple process again, like this one. And the yellow boxes is actually these are the 4 points where you have to probably bother your customer. Yeah, so this is, hey, is there a maintenance windows, and it's just a few elements and a few moments where we really have to get back to the customer for clarification. Yeah, so complex things simplified by smart runbooks and this SOA technology. All right. Now, apologies for the people on the call who have a very deep technical knowledge. This is, of course, a simplified, high-level functional architecture picture. Yeah. So, but in the interest of time, I mean, we couldn't go much deeper. Yeah. But let me try to at least explain the platform we are using and the main building blocks. So, the interesting part is on the left-hand side of this yellow line, and it's the customer premises. Let's say it is a substation, and you would probably have a passive sensor. So this is, I don't know if you're familiar with these technologies. This could be the likes Nozomi, Cyberix, Clarity, you name it. So these are passive sniffers. They are non-disruptive. So they're just listening to the network. They have partially machine learning algorithms on it that would learn the normal behavior of the network and the assets and the software, and also partially of the user, what they're doing, and would create a baseline. And then after you terminate the learning phase, these guys can very easily spot anomalies. Yeah. So, and it works very good in OT networks. If you would put this specialized sensor in an IT network, that would be super noisy. And of course, we have probably some physical security elements. This could be cameras, it could be some switches on a rack, something like that, right? So we have some sensors in the field here, and then we have visualized by one central box, a box over here, which is a central management system for all the sensors to maintain them, patch them, supervise them. That's a normal central management system, but there's also a vulnerability scanning element on that, which is in particular available for the control center of the customer, yeah, where you actually where you have more Windows systems that you want to scan probably. So this is also a function on this central box, and you have this little SOA element over here, and that is because the philosophy we have is we wanted to keep as much as possible the raw data and critical data on the customer premises. Yeah, and already these sensors over here, they do the groundwork in number crunching analytics, so they do not have to send data to somewhere to be analyzed. So they do already this analysis, and also the SOA element. If the customer, for example, has an asset DB on its side or a ticketing system, we locally interface with it. Yes, so only in case that there is really an alert, we might get informed, and some tiny bits of metadata might be transferred to the analysts. Yeah. So how do we do this? Of course, if you want to provide a managed service, you need some kind of remote access. Yeah. The technology we use was built for providing secure remote access for the industry. It comprises of a gateway on site and something we call a rendezvous server. And the way it works is that the box, in case we need this connectivity, will build an outbound connection towards the rendezvous server, and we will also build an outbound connection. The beauty here is you don't have to let anybody in through this firewall. Yeah, so it's an outbound connection, and for us it's the same. And we meet on this rendezvous server, and of course, then you can tunnel information over that. The other beauty of this solution is The customer can record what people are doing. Yeah, so there's the capability. If he wants, he can record what's going on, and he can also approve certain activities. And it is not just that he has to open a terminal and then a portal and do some stuff. So there's a key switch. Yes, you can have a key switch, or you can have an RTU switching this, or if the customer has a big HMI screen in the control center, he can trigger the access via this. So it's supporting industrial workflows. That's what I wanted to say, right? And yeah, the probably main last part that is missing is obviously the industrial control center, the industrial security center. Apologies. And you see some people sitting next to each other, representing the physical, the OT, and the cyber domain. So in reality, they are probably not always sitting next to each other. That's probably different rooms. You know, this is how a security operations center works these days. However, they are interlinked, and their systems are interlinked via APIs. And you see this fourth guy over here. This is not a person. It's a virtual person, if you like. This is this SOA software that acts like a level 1 analyst, very quickly doing the groundwork, first analysis, until the information is handed over to these guys, right? So this is a really crucial element in the mix. And last but not least, you know, proper incident response and monitoring can only be done if you have a really accurate asset register, right? So there are some customers, in particular the larger one, that might have an asset register on site, and then we would interface with that. Yeah. However, in particular for the small and medium-sized companies, they do not have this. Yeah. So we can offer a service here to have an asset register that cannot only be used for the incident response, that is also something they can use for the normal operation. All right, that is probably in a nutshell the architecture of the operation here. Now, I wanted to switch to some use cases, and unfortunately I cannot show you it live, but I also wanted to show share this picture with you. This is really a picture from a sensor that it's only 2 days old, this picture, right? This is a sensor in a water utility pump station, major one in Germany, where this sensor, it's one of these sensors I've explained the slide before, which is actually in learning mode. It's still in learning mode, and these little dots you see, these are devices that the sensor is detecting. Yeah, so the red ones are the new ones, and the sensor now tries to determine the topology of the network. Yeah, so if you would zoom in into these dots, you would see lines of connection. But I found it really amazing because the moment we inspected the collection of this machine learning algorithm, it provided us with something that really looks like an eyeball. Yeah, so machine intelligence can be very human sometimes. Yeah. So, okay, let me switch to some animated slides to really explain what is the power of having these 3 domains of knowledge interacting in a normal situation, right? So we have some, let's say this situation, you have a smart city, you have a substation providing power to the city, and you have a control center controlling this grid. It could also be a power production side, a power plant, that doesn't matter. For the time being, let's stick with the smart city. I put the smart city in the south because we need some space over here in the right. Now let's think about 3 attack scenarios. So the first is the one I've mentioned already. You probably have a technician with an infected notebook. The next one is you have an intruder, burglar jumping over the fence and try to do some weird stuff. And this car parking nearby, trying to probably scan some Wi-Fi networks. So they are chosen deliberately because we have in some sort seen all of them during the pilot. They all would lead in the next step to some kind of intrusion where the attacker, as I said, probably try to access an already existing access point. The infected notebook would probably install some malware, and this little thing on the left-hand side, I don't know if you can really see my camera now. So this is a hardware implant. So it's a little dongle. Yeah. So this one is a keylogger, a Wi-Fi access point, and an attack platform in one go. Yeah. So you could even have a cable just looking like a normal cable, and you put this between the computer and the keyboard, and then you have a remote access platform established, right? So these things are around, and this is the example for this little thing on the left-hand side. Yeah. Now, what typically happens then? The attacker tries to establish phone home, via more or less a direct route, or the guy tries to find a way to the control center that might have internet connectivity and then phone home. Yeah. So this is typically a multi-stage thing. Yeah. This typically does not happen instantly, and that would also cause some kind of activities. Yeah. So now let's assume in the next stage the attacker actually established persistent remote access, and then example Colonial Pipeline and other incidents, they would probably start encrypting critical systems or exfiltrate some data where they want to blackmail the target, and at the end of the day, that might even have causing disruption in the power supply to the city. Yeah? So this is the problem space, the scenario that I wanted to show how the Industrial Security Center can help here, right? Okay, now let's revert and start from scratch. So this is on the left-hand side our Industrial Security Center, 3 layers indicating 3 domains. We would have some sensors that might be physical sensors and network security sensors, and then the city again in this house. Now let's go through these 3 attack scenarios one by one. The technician on site with the infected notebook, and this is something we really had. Yeah, so during the pilot, we had somebody coming in, and the guy was announced. So we had the camera actually saying, "Look, there is somebody on site," and he, as I said, was verified by Securitas saying, "Look, yep, this is the guy. He's allowed to enter the building." And then all of a sudden, a few seconds later, the network sensor said there's really strange stuff going on a Windows 7 HMI computer in the substation. Yes, and in this particular case, in the beginning, it was not 100% clear. Is this just a misbehaving software? Is that malware? However, this was the moment, as per runbook, where the 3 analysts or the 3 domains actually had a short interaction, said, look, how critical is this system, this Windows 7 system, and is this a normal behavior? So this is where we shared our knowledge. And then it was very simple to say, look, this Windows 7 system is the primary HMI, so the human machine interface, the computer that drives these big screens. Yeah. However, in the control center, there's a secondary, so we can easily switch, and this is what we did. We switched to the secondary, and then we could easily unplug this Windows 7 machine from the network to do some additional forensics, and the OT operation could continue as normal. Yeah, and then we really found out that this was really just a software misconfiguration. Yeah, but this is where this power of having the information and the specialist to make a quick, educated decision helps, right? And then, of course, in this particular case, if that would have been malware, would have isolated the stuff and informed the technician that he has to clean up his notebook, right? Okay. Second case, let's say there's an intruder jumping over the fence, and this is probably a substation or a pump station, so water utility. They have stations somewhere far in the woods. There's not even a fence around this, and it's probably a 1 hour's drive from any civilized city to get there. Yeah? So what normally would happen, we would actually, of course, detect the guy, and then you have a speaker announcement saying, hey, you in the blue jacket, do you really want to continue? This is a 380 volt, 1000 volt operations. You better get off, or something like that. If that is a well-informed intruder that has probably a targeted intention, he might be aware that he has probably 20 minutes, half an hour until somebody actually really would be on that site. So he might not run away, and he might somehow break into the building and place some weird stuff. So the little dongle I've shown, or an access point, or he would probably do something. Yeah. And now again, we had this detection via our cameras. We would, of course, record everything. We would also record what the guy is doing inside the building. Yeah. So, for example, we would record that he is crawling under some desk, to probably place this dongle I've shown, or he would be in front of a panel and doing some switching operations. Yeah, so this all would be recorded, and then we would, with the specialists from the OT side and the physical experts, we would analyze: do we see something weird stuff on the network? And yeah, we could guide somebody who arrives later on the site to the right panel. Can you check what the guy did under the desk? And we would also inspect the behaviors on the network, if there's a remote access Trojan toolkit trying to bang out. So we could much faster and much more focused respond to this and probably identify and revert back the things the guy had done. Yeah, so this is again the beauty if you have people with the different knowledge. And then last example, so access point on a substation. Yeah, so you probably say, yeah, that's not realistic. They're not there. Yeah, so this is a picture from a Swiss substation, and we have been told, yeah, we are completely air-gapped, right? This is a checkpoint firewall, and the right cable is internet, and the left one is the internal substation network. So they are not that air-gapped, but that was also due to Corona, and they later told us, yeah, we needed some kind of remote access. And on top of this, I don't know if you know this white Cisco pizza boxes, so the Wi-Fi antennas you typically have in an office on the wall. So that was attached to this internal network. And yeah, for sure, you can detect this outside the building. The second photo is a different activity. So we did a red teaming event on another substation where we showed how easy it is with. It's not a very expensive antenna. It's but with these high gain antennas, you can really detect and talk to access points in substations. Yeah, and the funny thing is, 50 meters this direction there was a camping site. Yeah, so you could even with your camper, and then you have this satellite TV dish on your roof. Yeah, or something that looks like a satellite dish, and it's in 2.4 gigahertz high gain antenna. You could have easily stood there for hours and then trying to access this Wi-Fi networks. Yeah, so this is far from being just a mock-up case. Yeah, and so let's assume we have this guy parking nearby, and then again we would have, of course, the loitering alert coming up because we have defined in the camera zones where no car should actually park, things like that. So we had to have a visual detection, and if this guy would start banging against the access point, trying to brute force some password or something, the network sensor would, of course, fire up and say, look, there is a strange activity. And due to the fact that we have both information, we could easily correlate the situation. And now again, having an OT experts on site here, we would also immediately assess, is this scanning activity due to some broadcast traffic or something causing some problems on the OT network? Yeah, should we isolate this access point immediately, or is it safe to delay this guy a little bit and collect some more data for threat hunting activities? Yeah, because you might be able, and also to delay him and to give the intervention team some time, yeah, to probably catch this guy. So again, with the OT experts, we can safely decide, should we stop this guy immediately, or should we let him a few minutes go to collect some more data? Because if we interrupt this guy immediately, his colleagues or the peers of this adversary group might come back a few weeks later via the IT network and try it a different way. Yeah? So to collecting, even if there's an incident and an attack, collecting threat intelligence data to understand what the guys are after is very crucial. Yeah? And this is, again, the beauty of having these 3 domain experts at one table and making a quick decision, right? Yeah, and of course, there is an aftermatch. You would jointly probably talk about what happened and how to improve the situation. And that could be, hey, do we really need this access point at the site? Yeah.